It's a renovation of the existing building with a small addition. I think it's 1,000 square feet addition.
1,000 square feet, that's a studio apartment, you know, at least. I mean, what is that for?
Maybe I'm not right on it's to store 2 trucks. It would be a heated addition to store 2 trucks in during the winter because
Oh, good.
they don't have a place to store them now, and they have to be in a heated place in order to keep the dirt from freezing so that they can fill the graves. And then it could also be used as a workshop and repair equipment there.
Uh-huh. Great. So I'm also worried about your electric bill.
Okay.
Okay, I think you could be about 2,000 short, based on the 35% increase. So we're going to have to look at that, but maybe we can do something about that in exchange for your cutting back your overtime.
Sounds like a plan.
But yeah, no, I think across town, everybody lowballed their electrical costs, and maybe, I mean, it's understandable. It's a big jump, and it's, you know, it'll take a bite. I mean, I think across town we're about $30,000 short of what's going to be a bill, and you can't come running to the Warrant Committee for a reserve fund transfer when you can't pay your electric bill, because it is a foreseen item. You know, we should budget for it. So we may have to supplement your line there. At any rate, so does anybody have any questions for Therese about her general expenses? We have this $11,700 here. That's the one-time money she was given last year, which in our newly designed template might have gone down here under one-time items, but that's okay.
It's up there in pink.
It's in pink. It's high. It's highlit. This 145 minus the 11 ends up being her $134,000. So it is a level dollar general expense. Darnell.
I'm looking at your level service for your fuel and oil. It's at about 24,000, and your level dollars at 26, and your less 2% at 26. I think that's reverse. Was there a reasoning for that?
You want to say again, Darnell?
If you look at the fuel and oil, line 14.
Yep.
You got level services at about 24, so 23,950. Then you have your level dollar, 26,000, and then your level your 2% is at, you know, less 2% is at 26,000.
Right.
Your level service is lower than your
Okay.
restrictive.
Hang on.
Yeah, the level dollars should be less. I
Yeah.
think some of these are,
This isn't updated. Is there updated?
I think you're looking at a pre-revision copy. I sent out the 2 revisions on the cemetery. This was from February 6th. You
So I'm
also
looking
had
at
one
the wrong
from
one.
January.
I'm looking at the wrong
I
one.
was looking at that too.
Yeah,
You
so
also
I'm looking
had
at
one from
revised.
January.
Okay. 12/2, so yeah. So okay, there's another
Yeah.
one. So I'm looking at the wrong one here. Oh,
Yeah,
let's see, hold on, where's the numbers at?
It
yeah,
is
the
a
12
prediction.
The 12-2 was the original, then there was a 12-2 revised, and then there was
Yeah, this is the rise one
a
here.
2-6 revised. I think we're good now with 2-6 revised. Lee Michael.
and each line item is just a prediction. Sometimes they
Right.
want to be a lot higher.
The wish list of the stone walls and the replacement of street signs, those comprise the one-time items for the next fiscal year, is that right?
Okay. So
That
there,
was an old.
That was the old budget
the
as well?
old budget listed one-time items of $12,000, as if they had already been awarded, okay? In the budget,
Oh,
okay? So if that's what, that's not here. The new budget did not give us a narrative, but I can pull that up from the old,
my question is,
sure.
what amount is now requested for one-time items, and do we have an itemization for what that new amount is? Because in the
We
old
don't.
budget, the list requested didn't match the number that seemed to be indicated on the schedule.
So I met with my subcommittee, and I took apart my budget again because of the questions that you had, and I have one of the one-time items I included in the building and grounds line item, and that was the rolling tent. And,
Oh, good.
so I think that, you know, I think we can include that in our regular budget and still be okay.
Okay, so Lee Michael, originally Therese put in that $12,000 figure as an expectation of receiving one-time money for $12,000.
Okay.
Okay, and then she told us that the 12,000 would cover a rolling tent and a stand-on leaf blower.
Okay.
Okay. I advised Therese that she couldn't assume that we were gonna give her
Yep.
those things, took the $12,000 out of her budget, and thought you might rewrite that piece of the narrative for us.
I did, did you get my latest narrative?
It wasn't part of your,
It was attached to the new budget, and then it was a Word
as a
document.
separate attachment?
Yes.
Okay, we will find it.
I sent it to you and John and Phil.
Okay.
It
Great.
explained all the different line items, but when I took it, I took the whole budget apart again, and the equipment line item, I think I might increase that to include the stand-on leaf blower.
Great, so that does have a wish list for one-time items, for instance, stone wall repairs. You had stone wall repairs and replacement street signs originally.
Yes, that's a wish list if,
That's still there?
yes, I mean, that will be there.
Okay,
But it's not in the budget, I haven't put a dollar figure on that, that's just a wish list.
right.
Okay.
So,
As long as you have it.
well, if I don't have it all, I know it exists.
I'll resend it, and
Okay.
then you can forward it to everyone.
That might be great, that might be a good idea. Because I don't, you don't have it either, Phil?
Yeah, This,
Okay.
this, like the historical narrative and stuff, you didn't get that?
So that would be useful.
Okay. I will-
Great, great. That'd probably answer all those questions along those lines. So, since you have it in front of you, what's the bottom line total on your Christmas list?
Oh, well, the narrative was just explaining line items, it didn't have the wish list items there.
Oh, it didn't?
No.
Okay. But you were able to incorporate the rolling tent into your equipment purchasing?
Yes, and that's what, and I explained those in the line item
Great.
explanation in the narrative, so I'll get that to you. And the, our, major purchase that we need to make really is over 10,000. It's a backhoe that is central to our work, so that's what we're hoping to get funded for.
Okay. So you've applied to the Capital Improvement Planning Committee for that?
Yes, because our backhoe's getting old, and we had to spend $20,000 last year to keep it working. That's not good. That's about the value of it as a trade-in, so.
Well, Lee Michael?
Just to clarify, it sounds like you still have wish list items, but you said that they're not in the new narrative. So will you add those in before you send that
Sure.
to Ted?
Yes,
Okay. Otherwise, we won't have them to consider.
okay. You promise you'll consider them, I'll send them.
We'll consider everything.
We always consider. This might be a tough
Consider
year.
everything.
This might be,
Yes, it's my
all
idea.
those stone walls and replacement street signs might disappear under the 72 inches of snow.
Maybe they won't melt by next year.
I think it's about $8,000 an inch. I think we're getting pretty expensive.
Another 1.5 foot predicted this weekend.
Stop that.
And you're laughing? And you're laughing?
Just say, we're gonna have bright sunny days this weekend, maybe that'll work.
That would work.
Sure.
Man, this stuff is getting.
So, this is a wonderful institution and a great resource to the town. And I don't know, it seems to me there gotta be some nearby houses you can take by eminent domain, so you can keep it going, but,
Is yours one of them?
it's not contiguous. So, at any rate, thank you, Therese.
Oh,
I don't think anybody else has any more questions. But if you could resend that narrative, that would be great.
Okay, I will.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, we will absolutely look at it. I mean, I think the difference, the primary differences you have between, that we ought to be considering, is you want a lot more equipment, basically. Right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, it's the difference, and that's probably what you're referring to, is having written it up in your narrative, right?
Right, and in the narrative, I explained, doing an analysis of the, past few years, the line items, building and grounds, equipment maintenance, equipment, et cetera, they comprise over 25% of the whole budget.
Right.
More than that, let's say 20, 34, no, about 50% of the budget. So the other line items just kind of like are 0.05 to 6% of the budget. So those are the big ticket items that we need every year to keep our operation going.
Okay. We will, here's that glitch you were talking about. Oh, you know what, I think this is the wrong, that's the wrong version, get me out of there. I should trash that. Yeah, it's these lines here, your grounds and buildings and your equipment, and you explain what it is you're looking for that you might be able to get with level service funding instead of just even with last year.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Right?
Okay.
All right,
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Therese.
That's the narrative.
Steve, there's plenty of room.
I know, I didn't want to move.
So-
Yeah, just a little bit.
It's all right. But,
You're on TV.
let me worry. All right. So, our next budget will be the fire department. And we're happy to see Chief Grant. Jack? Have a seat.
Good evening.
Man, you haven't had to do anything with this snow, right?
This is by far the worst I've ever seen. I drove around for 2 hours today, just taking a look at side streets, and the hydrants on the side streets are all 2 feet below the height of
gone.
the snowbanks.
Yeah, they're gone.
Yeah,
You
they're
can't,
good.
It's,
can't even find where they are to shovel them out.
That's the problem, yeah. We've always said certain neighborhoods you can go in and almost every person shovels their hydrants, and then there's other neighborhoods where people just don't. One of the neighborhoods that we really see every hydrant shoveled, I drove through that today, and there's nothing there. And our own guys said they were out shoveling last week, and with the widening, they're gone again, and there's no sign of them. So it's not a good feeling.
Yeah.
Well, it just keeps coming.
It just keeps coming.
So do you have any way of locating the hydrants electronically, GPS locating devices?
You know what, that's a project we have to undertake. Honestly, we're still on paper maps. And the problem we're finding this year is that over the course of time, hydrants have been relocated and they're not updated. So there are some in spots that even though we know we're right there, we're not finding them. So what we do is we operate off the maps that we have, and we have a metal detector on each engine. So once you're in the area, you know, you're trying to drive it with the detector.
Have you tried Google Street View?
If they're not visible, back in the day when those maps were accurate,
Yeah.
if the hydrant is not visible, you know, and before before the technology even got to there for us, you know, you'd be poking holes in the snowbanks, hoping to hit it. And you think about it, if you miss it by this much, they have used it to a certain amount of success. But like I say, without the metal detector, you know, you're really up against it.
Wow, well, it's a challenge. I mean, you can't even maneuver your vehicles around the corners.
No, matter of fact, I put an order out today, and I know we've talked about these kind of things before, and it's kind of a foreign concept anyways, but a box alarm, say, you know, we get a call for smoke in the building or somebody pulls a firebox. We have different levels of response, but that's a box alarm. Gets 2 engines, the ladder truck, and the deputy chief's car. I took the ladder truck off today, and basically we're going to keep that in quarters unless we get a good idea that we actually have a structure fire. It's just too cumbersome. There's generally one person on it. It's just a bad mix. So we're going to hold that in quarters unless we really have a feel that there's something actually going on. By the same token, like I just said, we send 2 engines on a box alarm. If we do get that call where there's a strong suspicion we have something, out of the gate we're adding the 3rd engine. So yeah, we're just playing both ends to the middle as best we can.
So, but at least you guys don't have to drive snowplows.
Very good point.
Right.
Very good point.
And I can imagine a pretty big plow in the front of some of those engines. Do a great job. All right. So we're gonna take a 50,000-foot view of your budget right now, and the thing that jumps out is 2 things. The personnel services line looks funny. It just doesn't look right. And the reason is, you know, because appropriated for fiscal year 15 is $4,570,000. Level dollars, $4,571,000.
Mm-hmm.
So the
Oh,
reason,
I know where you're going.
so the reason for that is because the fire department has not settled a wage contract yet. They are the only ones who have not.
And to even complicate it a little more, when you're looking at the FY15 figure, it's actually FY13 that we're operating off because they've been out for a couple of years.
Right, it's a 13, 14, 15 contract. Sorry, 14, 15, 16, fiscal year 16 contract that is not negotiated. So in order for the town to negotiate in good faith with the fire unions or one?
One union, yeah.
We have to put aside sufficient money to perhaps fund whatever contract might or might not be, you know, negotiated. So we take a guess at what those terms might end up being, and make the calculations, and it's got to go, you know, what would 14 be, what would 15 be, what would 16 be? Compound it, put it forth, and we have a figure of $391,917 for those 3 years, and I can I can show you that calculation if you would like. It will end up in a separate set-aside article, a separate article to be voted on at town meeting. Last year we had one, but it was only for 2 years, not for 3, but it was for pretty much all the departments in town, because nobody had settled.
Right, nobody had
Okay.
settled, right, and the rest of them settled just ahead of town meeting, as I recall.
What was that figure again, please, Ted?
$391,917.
That's for 16 too, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And that'll be its own article at town.
It will be in its own article. Right now, in our working budget, I've lumped it in with the Chapter 13 wage set-aside, which is about 35,000. So there's the line item says 428,000, something like that. What worries me about this, Jack, frankly, is you're hanging out, the fire department's hanging out there by themselves, okay? You know, if it gets voted down, you got a problem.
If it gets voted down,
So does the town, but,
right,
you know.
right.
But it's sitting there all by itself, as a single department. I can't tell you how happy I'd be if there was some movement on that front, you know? It would, you know, before we had to put this thing to print. I think that would be terrific.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
So, anyway, anybody have any questions on that bit? Okay. All right. So anyway, that's why the wage line looks so funny. The other thing about that wage line is level service is calling for $4,800,000, and the level dollar is $4,571,000, and the difference between them has nothing to do with
Wage set-aside.
raises.
Collective
Okay.
bargaining process, right.
So then you go, okay, what's going on here? And if you go through the budget, there's a lot of it, okay? And I don't know if we wanna, we'll come back to this page, but here we go, all the firemen, okay? And, yeah, somewhere around on the second page, well, on the second page, there is a vacancy.
Second page at the bottom, I believe you're looking, right?
Right.
And then I think the other
Oh,
one
and
you're
on the
probably
first
looking
page,
at is on the first.
first page is the new position, okay? That's being asked for. So that's, you read it in the narrative, it's for a lieutenant, a training lieutenant primarily. So, anyway, Jack can tell us about that. Right now, I just want to identify the difference in the dollar number figures, okay? So we've got a 66,000 there.
About
It's
110,000.
110 right there.
110 for those two.
Well, the vacancy is not part of the difference, because that would be in either scenario.
The vacancy, as a matter of fact, at this point in time, there's a name to the vacancy.
Oh, good.
When we
Okay.
submitted that, there wasn't.
Great.
Oh, I see.
So, yeah, technically,
Vacancy's already-
as of July, probably right around, July 1st, we'll have that person back from the academy and in the street.
So-
He starts
so-
into the academy on March 2nd,
Great,
so coming up fairly soon.
that's good.
That's still up.
Anyway, so this is the page which, next to the police page that's similar, is the one that always just blows my mind. Because I never knew people could get paid for so many different activities within one job. So, more power to them. At any rate, when you look at this, you can see the difference between fiscal year 15 appropriation, level service, and level dollar, which is, say, what it was the year before. And and this is nicely laid out, Jack. Anyway, you can see here fiscal year overtime, 300,000 from fiscal year 15, what we're in now. Level service request 400, level dollar 300, which is what it should be as a level dollar request. So there's 100,000. There's another.
Yeah, training.
There's another 10,000 in training, and
I think that's all
there's
of it.
nope. There's a giant amount, about $43,000 in PD buyback. Okay, difference is from 19,000 to 62,000, and that's 40 grand. So that's about, those are the main things that, I mean, there's a couple thousand here and there somewhere else. Those are the main things, and I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what is PD buyback, paid days? buyback?
Personal day buyback.
Personal day.
Yeah, that's, and to be honest with you, the true figure is the $62,000 figure. The figure that we're playing with fire on is the $19,000 figure. Personal days they're actually earned days. There are two, I believe, that have been negotiated in the last couple of years that are flat out personal days closed. But they have the ability to earn a personal day each quarter for no use of sick time. At the end of the year, if they haven't used those, they can cash them in. So the $62,000 figure comes from the fact that contractually they have the right to cash them in. So that basically is the figure that if everybody had every personal day and cashed them in, that we would be responsible for.
Go ahead.
It's correlated to unused sick days. Is there a limit, or is it all their unused sick days?
It's if in a quarter of the year,
Yes.
they have not used any. So it's got nothing to do with accumulating.
I see.
It's just,
So if they
yes,
haven't used,
it's non-use,
if they
right.
haven't used a single sick day, then they get assigned
They get basically, we
personal
call
day
them
that they
personal
can-
days, but
that
it's an
they
earned
can-
day, right?
That they can cash in. They
Exactly.
get one per quarter for
They get
unused.
one per quarter,
All right.
yes.
But at the same time, at the end of their career, they can buy all the sick days back?
No,
No.
it has to be at the end of that calendar year.
Ah,
Yeah.
so
Not
so
sick days, it's personal days.
that replaces, I mean, for instance, last year you had a $14,000 sick day buyback.
The sick day
This year you have
buyback,
another $10,000,
yes.
okay?
That is at the end of a person's career, after they've turned in however many they had, which I think is 40. I think they have to have at least 40 to turn in, and then I believe that it's X amount of dollars per day beyond that. So that's a one-time thing at the end of the
So the
career.
personal days are a reward for not using a sick day,
Yes,
but you still get the sick days
As a buyback.
as a
you
buyback.
still get the sick days as a buyback.
At the end of your career.
Gee, Darnell, but I want to join your department.
All right, so what we're saying, so the max a person can get is 4 days. Is that what?
The max they can get is 6, because there are 2 that are personal days that are just, like you
Oh,
say,
so
you
they
don't have
just
to earn
basically
them.
have 2 days. All right, so
Yes.
it's maximum is 6. And we have no, so we need to get these guys out of here. All right.
So six
Six days.
days times the number of firefighters.
Fire, and that gives you your gives you your
Right.
62 grand.
So they can
65.
cash them in if they don't use the personal days.
They can cash them in if
And
they
they
don't.
lose
All
them if-
6. If they don't
All
use
6, yes.
And
But if they
lose
use them, they use them.
Most use them, which is why that's one of the spots over the last couple of years that we have
All right, Darren.
stolen from and, funded other things. So that's the difference between that 62 and the 19 that you're seeing, is we've taken and dispersed it, hoping that they're not gonna fold their arms and say, hey, we're cashing in every one of these.
Okay, and they don't carry over to the next year.
They
So
do
at the
not
end
carry
of-
over.
So, okay, excellent.
I was just say, what's been the practice?
The practice for the most part, there
Take
are
the
a
day.
handful that take the pay. For the most part, they use the time.
Use the time, got it. And is that 19,000 number, is that what was used last year, or that's just a third of it, or?
I think that's, yeah, probably within reason where we need to be,
Got it.
probably with a little bit of a cushion.
Got it.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Jack, when they use a personal day, don't you have to fill that spot with overtime?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Well, I should correct that. Not necessarily, potentially. You know, it depends on when they take it. And the problem from my end with the personal days, vacation days, you're allowed 2 people off, case closed. So if we've got a full group, say, staffed at 14, that brings us down to 12. We're still good, we're not in an overtime situation. There's no limit, other than Christmas and Thanksgiving, there's no limit to the use of personal days.
Could I ask a follow-up? Are there any restrictions on the days they can take as personal days?
No, just like I say, Christmas and Thanksgiving.
So they don't have to get permission of anyone to take a personal day?
They do not.
Okay.
Doesn't that make staffing safely kind of tough?
Well, it's not that they have to call in and let us know they're taking it, but, you know, I can't prevent them from taking it, put it that way. So, you know, you're gonna staff because we've got an 11-man minimum, but, you know, we may be, you know, we
Is
may
there
be
any
putting on
sort of-
3 overtime shifts.
Is there any sort of hierarchy involved here? And if you're the lowest, newest hire, do you have the same rights for personal
You do,
days as
yes.
anybody else?
Yeah. Yep, I will say the only, and it did not become an issue, but, you know, the only time we foresaw it being an issue was Christmas Eve, where a lot of people put in for them. And again, you know, most days during the course of the year, somebody's willing to take an overtime. You know, you don't have to go to what we call holdover. Say we drop to 10 men, and we had nobody willing to come in. Somebody from the previous day is staying to maintain that manpower. So that would be the only case where you'd, you know, bump low man off the totem pole.
I really hope that they're not, the union isn't looking to increase that. I hope that's not the stumbling block in this negotiation. So, looking at fiscal year 14,
Add 14 on,
okay, you budgeted 27,000 for personal day buybacks, and you spent 15.
Mhm.
So that track record would indicate that the 19 would be fine.
right. But
But people are entitled to,
exactly. It's kind of one of those fine line things. We think we're okay there. We don't really think we can steal any more out of there, but we think we're okay sitting there.
okay, I think we know something about that now that we didn't know before. The training is a $10,000 item, and you talk about that in your narration. The paid, let's see, what is it? The $40,000. No, that was it, the paid buyback. So you now have a full complement because you filled your vacancy. And you didn't have any vacancies for you haven't had vacancies for a long stretch.
We hired 3 last year, so we did have some.
You did have some.
Yeah.
Would that have contributed to your overtime bill?
Yes, it does contribute to the overtime. Honestly, a lot of it's just that we haven't adjusted that overtime as the wages go up, so it's just creeping apart, which is why for the last, say, 5 years, we've been right at or even above the $400,000 mark. Either slightly below it, like in the high 390s, or I think the worst year was up to 4.25 even. So like I say, with all the level dollar budgets and all that, we haven't been able to really move on that too much. So the thought is if we can get it up to around where it should be, and then moving forward as the contracts get settled, you know, if we put that 2% bump in it, we shouldn't get to this, you know, spot where we get in jammed up overtime-wise. I would have to say, though, more so than the vacancies, it's a combination of everything, but it really goes up and down based on sickness and injury. You know, when you've got guys out long-term on either one, and as well as the time of year. You know, if you've got them out coming late winter into spring, then, and here's where it combines with vacation time as well, you know, you do okay. You know, the overtime stays relatively low. If you've got a bunch of people out and you come into that high-use vacation, you know, you'll see the overtime skyrocket.
Well, last year, well, fiscal year 14, you had $300,000 budgeted, but you spent $390, and you were able to cover it pretty neatly because you didn't spend $85,000 in your basic wage and salary line.
Right.
And I figured that was from a vacancy. Is that?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah. It's when you have no
Going
place.
forward, if you have no vacancy,
Right. Right.
then will your overtime come down that much? Maybe not.
No, there again, same as Therese said, maybe not is the right answer. You just don't know. You know, we're going through one of those years this year where we've got an awful lot of people out, and it's a painful year overtime-wise. Last year, we actually got through, we did not have a high level of injury, and you said, like you say, we had a little bit of salary money that we could steal from so that we stayed within range, but.
And the year before, you even came to us for an RFT for $35,000, and you
Yes.
ended up being able to give it back.
Gave it back, yeah.
So that,
Yeah, and that year there, you could kind of, you know, I knew I had to come and ask you for it, and I thought I would give you some back. I didn't think I'd give you all back, but, you know, you could see that the people that were out were coming toward the end, and they were, you know, coming back to work, and it all came together nicely.
Darnell.
So am I hearing that we might see an RFT for overtime?
Provided that the selectmen vote in my favor, you will see an RFT for overtime, yes,
Any ideas
For this
on,
year?
numbers?
for this year, yeah. Yeah, it'll be exactly the number I'm looking at. We're be looking for 100,000. Yeah, it'd be the same caveat that if we don't use it, we'll give it back to you, but we'll be looking for 100.
Oh, God.
We may not have it.
Oh, right.
I get it, yeah.
It may not be there. It may have,
Yeah.
gone under the plows.
Right.
Yeah. It's,
So what do you do?
If that, in that case, you know, you run short. If you guys don't have it, you know, if 10 men show, we run an engine short.
Well,
that's
that's
suicide.
now policy area, and that's not really our purview, but you gotta realize there may not be money.
Oh, no, and I do, believe me, and, you know, and I get that you guys get the seriousness of it, but like you said, if it's not there, it's not there. You know,
We have to do mid-season cuts.
Well, but the other difficulty is that if we know you're coming to us for $100,000 of overtime this year, then it kind of does make the case for trying to fund it for next year.
it really does.
And that's difficult too.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's one of those things that, and I get what you guys are going through year to year, and this may not be the year that you can fund it, and we'll keep putting it in there. But we are definitely getting tighter as the years go on, and you'll probably see more requests.
Why do we get tighter as years go on? Is this an
Well, again,
attitude
those, you
thing or
know,
what?
the collective bargaining process, yeah, just, you know, if the overtime stays here and they go up, you know, 6, 8, 10% over.
No, I get
You're
that.
creeping away.
I get that. Oh, sure, no, I mean, if you've been at 300,000 forever and you need a
Right.
10% increase would be 30,000, not,
Well, I think it's a case where we've been underfunded for quite a while. You know, even when we've made changes to bump it up, we haven't bumped it up to where it should be. So it's years where things go good, you get away with it, and years where things go bad, you just don't get away with it. Which is exactly where the $400,000 figure or the $100,000 increase comes in. I think that sets us straight. And if we're able to, you know, take a look and say, all right, we're a 2% wage increase this year, or a 4%, or whatever it is, you know, if we
Right.
keep pace, that corrects the problem, I believe.
Right, so just to put it in context, there might be a couple $100,000 for the entire town, above and beyond contractual levels of, you know, support.
Mm-hmm.
And you're looking at, and you're saying to me that you need half of it, right?
We got projects that are out there that we don't have it. Bottom line.
Yeah, that's the problem.
It's a
You've got, I mean, the town's got a problem. Because if everybody needs, you know, another chunk of 100,000 or 50,000 or 20,000 or a van driver or whatever above and beyond what they were doing last year and got by with last year, it's a problem.
Yeah, oh, no, absolutely, I completely agree with you.
Okay, well, on that cheery note, do you want to tell us about equipment line?
The equipment
The
line,
one you characterized, this is your regular equipment line that has been as high as, I think, 50 in the past.
it's
Has
been
whittled, or 60?
Yeah,
And it's been whittled down to 30. And last year you invented new tools and found new places to get things and
you might be giving me too much credit there.
and got something from the hospitals, I think.
We
even,
did get a saw from the hospital, yes.
But this year you think you really need the $57,000 or bust.
This is all stuff we need. We're not inventing anything.
Right.
You know, there again, it's my request. My pretty much drop dead. If you look at the lines for as you drop to the level service and the -2, we go back to that 30, and I kind of hold the line there. With the stipulation that we'll, you know, prioritize what we have on this list. You know, what you don't fund this year will be back on this list next year.
So, are the storage conditions for the hoses, do they factor in the life of the hose?
They, in years past, they did. At this point in time, no.
No.
No, the materials now hold up. I still do the practice of, because I don't care what the materials are, we still do the practice of stripping out the hose bed once a year. We carry 1,000 feet of the big line, the hydrant line on each piece. And it's rare that you ever lay the whole thing out. So by stripping it down and repacking it, you know, you're putting different hose at the bottom and the top, and you're changing where the folds are. So you know, hopefully you're extending the life of that in that way. But as far as the old days of having to hang it and dry it out and all that, that's gone.
Oh, good. Because you don't have the room to do that anyway. Steve?
You know what, surprisingly, we do. The old hose,
Yeah.
the old hose racks are down in the basement still. I've never seen them used myself, but they are down there. I don't know how conducive our basement is to drying, but the hose racks are there.
On the list of equipment
Mhm.
requested, is that in some kind of a priority order?
No, it really isn't. It's, you know, it's a matter of, you know, going through and checking with last year's list, you know, seeing what new purchases you may need. So it's not in a priority order.
Is that something you could do, set it into a priority order?
I suppose I could.
Some, but not all the money's available, or that
Mhm.
kind of thing, would you?
Right, right. Well, yeah, I mean, just, you know, if we just go down the list as well, and I know we've talked about this before, some of these, and I hate to say this because it sounds like we don't need it. If the second item on the list, thermal imager, that would be a fourth imager. That would be a backup. Like you say, I hate to say backup because, you know, these things have a hard life, and it's very rare. Radio is another one that will be one backup. I'd love to build up a bank of about 6 backups. You know, these things are in and out for repairs, you know, relatively frequently. So, but there again, you know, understanding what you guys are in, if you cut me, those are the decisions that I make. The have valve that I have written there, 2. One of them is to go front line, so that one is a priority. The second is to create that backup. So I'd go through that way, and I can certainly break that down for you guys and email it over to you.
That would be helpful, yes.
Yeah, I'll go through that tomorrow, break it down. When we get into things like, you know, the turnout gear, you know, the hoods, the gloves, of course, it's the lower end stuff. It's just an estimate of what I need, and, you know, I know if I say I need 2 hoods this year, I might need 6 pairs of gloves. It kind of plays off each other. That's a best estimate. But yeah, I'll be happy to go through and let you know what we have, what's looking to be backup, and, you know, what's looking to be frontline and all that.
Well, that would be good. So, do you want to tell us anything about the condition of your buildings?
Not much to tell, probably, further than, you know, what we said back in the town meeting. We're waiting on that study, and the weather's slowing us down there from getting the RFPs out to get the people in. We suspect that it's gonna come back that we'll need to build new. Not that they can't be saved, but the fact that we have an architect on the committee that we had, he strongly suspects that the replacement value will, you know, supersede the rehabilitation value of it.
So if the town can't build new facilities for 10 years, what do you do in the interim?
In the interim, Bill Ritchie and I have had those conversations a handful of times. I think what he would like to do is take that, yeah, we went to capital needs for some project money earlier. What he would like to do is take the project name off that and use it as needed with what comes up. The heating systems are very stressed right now. So if we had to come and ask and say, all right, we think we need new heat, we're locked into new heat. Whereas, you know, if we say, you know, we might be able to hold this together. If I look into this, bring this guy in and take a look at this, and, you know, so we're trying to prioritize.
You know, Bill has a $9,700 boiler repair for the East Milton Fire Station on his hit list.
Yeah.
And that's great. What, I guess I'm kind of confused. What happens, I guess, nowadays, if there's any need for a boiler repair or a paint job, or, you know, or anything like that, it's not in people's actual budgets to take care of a small situation like 10 grand. It's just not there.
It's
So
just, you're right.
So you have to go to facilities, or you have to go to, you know, if it's an emergency, maybe you come to the warrant committee for a reserve fund transfer.
Mhm.
And it's just not there. There's nothing in anybody's budget that is there for, you know, maintenance.
Right, and to be perfectly
You have to
honest,
call the
that's how we
plumber.
got where we are.
Right.
Because in our department, it hasn't been there since 1980.
What happened in 1980, you suppose?
Well, that's
Culturally.
just the other side of
So how the hell
Proposition
with
2.5.
it,
Right,
right?
And to be honest, whether I don't know whether I've thrown this out here or not, you know, basically because I'm second generation in the fire department, I know some of those historical things. At the time when 2.5 went through, the chief said, look, it's either put men out in the street and cut the running force, or scrap the maintenance budget, and he scrapped the maintenance budget.
Right.
probably happened a lot.
I'm sure it did, yeah, yeah.
I mean, it happens not just in the fire department.
Right, right.
And other towns.
So, you know, like I said, we kind of went through, and to me, if it's not life safety, you know, if the fire alarm systems need to be looked at a little bit, again, the heat, you know, this year here especially, things like that. But to me, if it's inconvenient stuff, I say we don't spend the money on it until we know what's going on. And if we know that, you know, say one building's being taken care of, you know, we can direct money to the other two, but even so, prioritize and hold off. You know, as long as they're standing, then, you know, they're not in good shape, and, you know, I wouldn't say that it's in a drastically different condition than it was 15 years ago. You know, we've worked in these buildings for, you know, 25, 30 years, some of us, and some of us longer. I'd say let's, you know, stay the course and do it right when the time comes, and take care of the things that need to be taken care of, and if we can get by, you know, with what's there, we do.
Well, that's presuming that
Presuming.
replacement's coming.
Exactly.
Right.
That's a whole, but that's why I say, let's wait for the report to come back, and then see where the chips fall then. And we may have to circle the wagons in a different direction on the other side.
You might. Because even if, you know, I mean, even if the report says, well, maybe you need a new building, that doesn't mean there's money there for the new
Exactly,
building.
exactly.
Okay? So you may have to circle the wagons back out of, you know, economic
Out of
reality.
economics. Yeah, and I would say that would be the
So-
case, if anything, you know, I think we have a pretty good idea of, you know, where the report's gonna go. You know, whether it does go new buildings or, you know, substantial renovation, it's still gonna come to an economic decision that will be out of all of our hands.
Well, it'll be in the voters' hands.
Exactly.
Which is where it should be.
A much larger set of hands.
Right. Okay. Anybody have any question? Oh, good. Lee Michael and then Mike.
Electricity for this budget?
Ah, yeah, electricity. You don't want to turn the lights off, do you? You're about
don't wanna
7,000
turn the lights off.
short, I think.
Yeah.
You're about 7,000 short on your electrical budget.
Oh, are we? We'll
Yeah.
have to take a look at that again.
Because I think you were basing it on your 14 budget as opposed to 14 actual, maybe, I'm not sure.
We'll take another look at that then.
So we'll probably do something for you there.
Okay,
because-
yeah.
But, yeah, that's, yeah. Mike?
Chief Grant, I'm new to this warrant committee stuff, but I was on the subcommittee for fire, and I was the reason for some of these questions that you got in the email.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you for it was very extensive, but there's one in here that you said you were going to get back to.
Oh, you know what? I realized that when I was going through, no,
I can rephrase, this is what, my background is I'm a data
Yep.
analyst, and so I was like, I didn't know anything about fire departments. I went on the website and found the Mass Fire Incident Reporting System.
yep.
Which showed me that there was a high rate of fires in Milton
Mhm.
and a low average cost of fires. So I thought, are there a lot of sheds
Made-
burning in Milton
made
or
no
something?
sense to you. Which is why I'm sorry that the subcommittee didn't come together, which was my fault.
We canceled a couple meetings too, didn't we?
Well, we had kind of set one that I was, you know what, it may have gotten canceled on your end as well, but
So, yeah.
I wasn't
just
gonna
like-
make it. That particular, you know what, quite honestly, for that kind of stuff, it's a bad reporting system. When we do our MFERS reports, quite honestly, they've tied participation in MFERS and then NFERS, which is the national, to eligibility for grants. You have to be doing these. But there's fields that are required and there's fields that aren't required. And neither one of those fields are a required entry. And in looking at them after your question came out, the high number of injury rate that you're seeing there is a matter of anytime you've got a significant run, or incident, I should say, you're going to have people that, pull a shoulder muscle, have some knee pain, have some back pain, and they're putting injury reports in there. The majority of those never see medical treatment, never see any lost time, but they get filed. And I can see that there's at least one, and probably, more than one, but not all four of them that are reporting all of those. On the other hand, I'd say it's more common than not to not report a dollar amount for a loss. And I can say I was always one of those, in that we really don't have any training in, estimating construction or real estate or anything like that. So, perfect answer is it's a bad reporting system.
Is it you're still getting credit for the grants that you can apply for?
You're still getting credit for the grants, yes. As a
That's-
matter
that's
of
good, so
yeah, and it's the bigger, which will be, I think I've got that in line either next year or the year after. I don't apply for them year to year. You can't go in with a laundry list of equipment like we have here and say, I need this and this and this, and you won't make it through the first round. But we are coming up on the end of the shelf life for the turnout gear that we have, which will probably be in this, in the neighborhood of $125,000 to $150,000 to replace the department's turnout. That's the, coat, pants.
Okay.
So we'll take advantage of that grant system for that. The last time we used it was to replace the, probably 3 or 4 years ago, to replace all the self-contained breathing apparatus that we use. Again, $125,000 project. So yes, we're
$100,000 is a lot of money, right, Ted?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's one of those things. Is what do you do the year that those grants get cut, or that for whatever reason you get denied for those? There's some of them that are very, very applicable, and those are two of them. So hopefully that remains the same, and those keep getting passed. Just to tie it, and not to tie it up, because we did the training officer. One of the questions was, what do we do in the neighborhood of fire prevention?
Right.
And we really don't do a whole lot, because right now we've got just 2 small grants that come through the state. One of them's the SAFE program, which allows us to go into the schools once a year with a safety trailer. And I think we do grades 1 through 3. It's either K through 3 or 1 through 3. And, do a program with them. That's been expanded this year to a second tier, and they're doing a senior safe program geared toward the elderly. So we'll expand that a little bit more. But if and when the time comes that we can fund that full-time training officer, I've only currently got one full-time day staff person, and that's our fire prevention officer. And although it's named fire prevention, it's really kind of a misnomer. It's really more of an inspectional position. Fire alarm systems, oil burner inspections, tank removal, tank installation, that kind of thing. So it's not fire prevention in that you're going out. So if we can get that training officer to a daytime shift position, between the two of them, I see enough leeway that they could work and create a public fire prevention program more substantial than what we have now.
So it is right what I read on the website, that fire prevention is an important goal?
Fire prevention is very important. And, you know, the easiest way to, prevent, life loss and property loss is to prevent the fire in the first place. So it's important, but sadly, a very strong statement for them to put in there because it's unfunded, or it's very, very underfunded everywhere. So they're kind of putting a lot of pressure on us.
They put a lot of pressure.
Although there's probably not a lot of people like yourself that are reading that kind of thing.
I'm trying to be a diligent board committee member here,
Early days.
Yeah, okay, so,
Keep trying.
the other thing I noticed that you'd answered was that injuries were causing a lot of trouble with overtime costs. Like,
Yes,
And-
yeah.
and I wondered, is there any kind of light duty that's available at the Milton Fire Department? Or would that help to have light duty available?
It doesn't, I do have it available, it's not very useful, in that we still need that person. If I have the guy in on light duty, I still need to hire an overtime position to man that position on the engine that's going out into the street, so it doesn't cut your costs. Sometimes it forces somebody back to work sooner if they're dragging on. But as far as money saving, it doesn't really equate.
So you told us you had 4 injured on duty when you answered the email. Is it still 4?
You know what, it probably went from 4 to 2 during the time, and now it's back to 4.
Oh,
Yeah.
no more questions?
There, like you said, just one of those bad years where we were at an incident the other night, and I could see a guy walking around, and I could tell he was hurt, and I'm thinking, you just shake your head,
Gene?
Yeah, now going to what you just asked, on the overtime, on the $100,000 overtime, that would be where you would pay someone if they were injured and you had to call someone in to, do you have a minimum staffing?
We do.
Okay, so then if someone gets injured, they are called in at overtime, an extra person's called in at overtime?
If we are under that minimum manning, yes.
Okay, and that would be part of the 100,000?
That would be exactly the 100,000. Yeah,
Okay.
that would come out of that pool, yes.
All right, so also you have a line for personal day buyback, which is, as I recorded, kind of a reward for not using the sick days.
It is, yes.
Okay. So then there's sort of, they are sort of part of overtime?
It can create overtime.
Yeah.
It can
So-
create overtime, yes.
So what is the, if you had to break down the 62,000 and the 100,000, what percentage of the overtime is due to firefighting? I mean, when they're out firefighting and you're paying straight,
What percentage of the overtime is?
would be really firefighting as opposed to a reward, as opposed to calling someone in because of not having, minimum staffing.
Mhm.
What is the breakdown of that? Do you have any idea?
Let me try to answer it this way. In reality, to fight a fire in Milton,
Yeah.
there is no overtime, unless there is somebody scheduled on overtime already because of those manpower issues that we've already talked
Right.
about. we don't call anybody in on overtime, although I should qualify that. We'll call in two. We'll call in a pilot, which is somebody who directs mutual aid companies that come in to cover our companies, because now we've emptied our station. All of our equipment and personnel is at the fire. So we backfilled the station across the street. So they'll hire a pilot to direct the out-of-town companies to any further incidents that come along, and they'll hire a dispatcher to handle the radio system. So we will hire two on any given fire, but nobody to the scene of the fire on overtime.
Okay, so the overtime is not attributable to ever fighting fires?
Not directly, no.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Well, that is a good question, Gene. I mean, can you break down the reasons for overtime?
You know, I've
Any
looked at it
meaningful
before. I can't put it that way. You might be able to.
Oh, you have a great benefit program. I'd love to come to work for the fire department.
You know, like I said, I have. I've looked at it to see if I could put it together, but there's so many things that come together that it's really hard to put your finger on. You know, like I say, say I've got a group of 14, and I've got that one guy that's out injured, and nobody on vacation, and nobody sick. That doesn't create overtime for me. Now you throw in 2 vacation days, and I'm still at the minimum, you know. Throw in that personal day, and now I'm in. You know, there's so many things that come together that I don't think you could put a finger on what single element causes it, or what percentages, because it's generally more than one thing coming together at the same time.
I got Darnell and then Phil.
A little bit off the topic. Fireman's Pickens, have we had any updates on him? As how he's doing, things of that nature?
I haven't myself. They just, and I haven't seen the guys since, but they just recently